Hi, I see people are joining, so welcome. And if you can hear me, please just chat something in the chat window. You should be able to just chat. Hello. If you want to tell me where you're joining from today, just let me know. Can you hear me? Can everyone who's joining, I see people are dropping into the room. Please just let me know if you can hear me today. And we'll be kicking off in just a moment. Hi, Harnish. Hello. Welcome. Harnish, can you hear me? Still haven't gotten confirmation. I'm pretty sure we have a good connection today. Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much. Hey, Tammy, welcome. I'm so glad to see you here. Hi, Kara. Great. Happy Friday to you too, Emily. Oh, I'm so glad it's Friday. You cannot imagine. Hey, Robin, welcome. Sheldon, welcome. It's so great to see you all here. I'm going to give it just a second more. I try to stay on a pretty tight schedule, and it is literally high noon on my, looking at my iPad here. So I'm just going to let a few more people drop in, and then we will kick off and rock and roll. TGIF, thank God it's Friday. All right. As anyone who's attended my webinars before knows, I kind of do a little admin up front. So I'm going to jump in. Hi, Lynn. I'm going to jump in. I will take some questions at the end. I always try to get your questions. Hey, Karthik, it's so great to have you here. Hello. So while people are still dropping in, I'm going to get us started. And let's get this show on the road. Okay. So I am Courtney Kirschbaum, and I'll give you a little bit more about my backstory as we get a little bit further in. And today's Free on Friday webinar topic from Job Hunt School is 5 ways to leverage your job hunt and pivot to a happier and more profitable career. I think a lot of people think that this is just, this unicorn, but it's possible. So I want to talk about that today and get some responses from you, and I'm eager to hear kind of your thoughts on some of these things. And I'm going to give you some information. We're going to cover those 5 things. And we're also going to talk about a golden equation. But let's jump into it. Okay, focus on right now. Turn your phone off. If you've got headphones, I would encourage you to put those on if you can. Don't multitask. We're going to be going through this content pretty quick, and it's going to be some things. I'm going to give you actions. It's going to be things you're going to want to capture. So my guidance to you is focus on the now, grab a pen and paper and take some notes. You'll retain more. A lot of the times I'll get people, will you send me your slides? I'm not able to send slides. I almost always send follow-up resources. So please grab a pen and piece of paper and jot some notes down, because you're going to want to. And keep an open mind. I guarantee you some of what I'm going to cover today, you will have heard before, but I'm going to do my best to put a new twist on it, to shed some new light on it, and to make it useful for you in a different way. So please just keep an open mind and realize that there might be some value even from things that you've heard before. Okay, I talked about writing it down. This is particularly important this week because at the end of the webinar this week, I'm going to give you a golden equation, and I'm going to give you the first part right now. And the first part is I want you to take your pen or your paper, or you're really digital, grab your phone and write down the number of years that you've been working. Just write down the number of years that you've been working. Jot that down. It can be in a cocktail napkin, whatever. Just capture that. And keep that, because it's going to be a component of this golden equation that really has the power to predict your future success. There are a lot of myths out there about what actually does predict your success. But this, I have found in 2 decades of working with people, of working all over the world, this predictor and this equation really rings true. So make sure you've got that written down. How many years have you been working? Okay. The reason I do these webinars, the reason I started Job Hunt School is because I think the work you do matters. I think you deserve to have financial independence and freedom, that you really shouldn't be a slave to your job. And I see a lot of people doing that. And if that's something that you believe that the work that you do can matter and make a difference in the world, and you want financial independence and freedom, then you're in the right place today. Because all of my work puts that in the crosshairs, and I try to bring people to that. Next, if you want a job that you enjoy and a career that has purpose, all of my work is directed toward helping people find those things, a job that you enjoy and a career that makes you feel like what you're doing has some meaning and purpose. And finally, if you want work-life balance and you want respect, I talk to so many clients and they tell me, I'm working so hard, but I don't, I thought I'd be more successful by now, or I don't feel like my work gets the respect it deserves. And I talk to people, and if you're here, you're probably one of them. Your work really matters to you, and that you do quality work matters to you. So if you're one of those people, and the work you do matters to you, then you have a right to expect reasonable work-life balance, and you absolutely have a right to expect, to be respected for your contribution in your work, because we spend a lot of time in our jobs, and we want these things. It's only natural to want them, and it's only natural to get them. So I saw this quote, and only a few years ago, and it's a Seth Godin quote, and I've put Seth Godin quotes throughout today's webinar. And the main reason I've done that is because Seth Godin is a very good marketer. And a lot of people don't think about their job hunt as marketing and progressing their career as marketing, but it truly is. And if you have a bad taste in your mouth about marketing, or you're rolling your eyes, stay with me here, because there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of sense in that. And I read this quote a few years ago: instead of wondering when your next vacation is, maybe you should set up a life you don't need to escape from. And hey, Scott, I'm glad you love the quote. I wanted that in my life, but I didn't really have a very, realistic idea of how I was going to get it. So I got my first job out of college, and my big dream was to travel all over the world. I didn't go to a very impressive school, but I got that sheepskin. I had it. And that did open doors for me. I got my first job, and I was a few years in, standing over the copier, dreaming about, commuting to work on the London Tube or in Paris, or just somewhere other than where I was. And I realized, it's not going to happen, because there are people here who have been working their whole lives and are just as hardworking and dedicated as you, and they're still sitting in a cubicle. And it's just 20 years down the road, and you can work hard and really essentially make very little progress. People will let you work hard for them for literally decades. And I'm sure we've all seen that. So why I do what I do is because I know that you can make that switch, and you don't necessarily need to go back to school and get another degree. You don't need to, have been born on a certain side of the tracks or graduated from Harvard. And I know that because I made that leap, and that leap pivoted for me on one very successful job hunt. And that resulted in me getting a job working for one of the most reputable consulting firms in the world. They moved me to Europe, set me up in a canal house in Amsterdam. I worked at their international headquarters, and I traveled all over the world. And I ended up having, that part of my career exceeded my expectations. I thought it would take me 10 years. It took me about 2 once I did a lot of the things I'm going to talk about in this webinar. And that's where that was an amazing realization. And then I learned a lot working for that company and several others in Australia, in Japan, in Paris, in Amsterdam, all over the world. And I saw a lot of similar themes, people that were working really hard, but weren't really making the progress that they thought they would make, and not knowing where to turn. So that is really a big part of what my work is about. And once I got into these firms and thought, I thought I'd made it. I'm like, I am working at an internationally recognized company. I'm living in Europe. I was living the dream. And I thought, all my prayers had been answered. And as I continued to work in that environment, I realized that really was just the first step, that in that environment, the competition was very stiff. And the people who got ahead weren't necessarily the hardest working ones. They weren't necessarily the smartest ones, but they knew things that I didn't know. And I spent a lot of years beating my head up against the wall trying to figure it out. And I did figure it out. And that is what my work today is about, helping people skip the beat your head against the wall years and go on and move on to doing something you love. And that's breaking down some myths. And I'm going to get to those in just a minute. So I created Job Hunt School. I ended up giving a TED Talk. I trained with two of the top high performance trainers in the world, Jack Canfield and Steve Siebold. And I just invested a lot of time in figuring out, what had been missed, for my education, because I didn't learn this in college. College was a great ticket. It opened the door for me, but there's so much more to learn. And anybody who's spent any time in the workforce knows this, and you may have experienced this same this is not how they told me it was going to be kind of experience. So that leads me to today. And what I do today is I help job seekers. And one of my primary means of doing that is teaching you how to take an entrepreneurial approach to your career. And in part, I do that by sharing those high performance tactics and those success tactics I learned from people like Jack Canfield and Steve Siebold. That enables you to attract opportunity, better offers, more money, and more freedom. It gets you that respect where you're valued for your work, but not just your work, also for your potential. People are able to more easily visualize, hey, this is somebody who's going places. So you don't have to kind of say, look at all the stuff I've done. You can actually pivot that and say, look at all the stuff I can do. You can trust me to do these things. And my superpower and what is absolutely required for you to do this is you've got to believe in yourself. And that is fundamental to achieving anything. If you don't, no matter where your degree is from, no matter what big time company you've worked for, no matter what project you brought in, if you don't believe in yourself, then it all, it's built on a foundation of sand. So that is critical. And that's a big part also of what I do. So I'm not going to give you some magic, methodology. I am going to give you a methodology, but it's not a magic pill. And I want to be really clear about that. The people who use this do the work. Aleve is not a magic pill either, but it'll get rid of your headache. Like it does the job it's meant to do. And these tactics that I give you in these webinars and in my programs, they do the job that they are promised to do. But you have to put some elbow grease behind it. And I always want to make that clear. If you do the work, you will see the results. And I'll give you some examples of that today. But I want to jump into these myths because there are 3 common ones that keep you in the cubicle. Everybody else has gone home. It's 7 o'clock. And there you are thinking, one day my ship will come in. It's going to pull right up to this cubicle. My big raise, my big promotion, my big whatever was going to roll in. Whitney, I love your sense of humor. So we're going to talk about these myths really quickly, and I know they're going to be familiar to you. So the first one is, I hear this all the time. There are no jobs like that. I'll start working with someone, talking with them about what they really want to do. And it's almost like pushing this magic button and I can just feel it coming. Oh, there are no jobs like that. What I want to do is this, but there are no jobs like that. I'm like, who took you aside in kindergarten and taught you to say that? And I should know because somebody taught me to say that too. And they taught me really, really early. And it's a myth. It's an absolute myth. Next, myth number 2, I'm not ready yet. That's going to be in my future. I'm not ready yet. That job that I tell you about, the one that started my career and made that huge leap from making copies and dreaming and daydreaming to actually living in Europe and working for this big company. I wasn't ready, but it was such an unbelievable chance. Or I didn't feel ready, but it was such an unbelievable chance. And the thing is, I met the challenge. And you will too. You think that you're not ready. You don't feel ready, but you're ready. And I think the reason this myth gets more and more embedded is because when you're in the work environment, which is where you're spending most of your time, where you think you're going to get your biggest payoff, your boss rarely comes up to you and says, I know you don't think you're ready for this raise and this promotion, but you're ready and I'm going to support you. What you typically get is, next year, maybe next year, you keep giving it your all and you step up this year, and next year you get your big prize. And then 364 days later, there you are. And where's your big prize? And I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but I've seen this a lot and I've felt it myself. You get that big prize and you've waited so long for it and worked so hard for it, it's often a letdown. You are more ready than you think. And if you don't feel that you're ready, in this webinar, I'm going to give you a little method and a little trick, kind of a secret weapon that will make you feel that readiness that you already possess. And finally, I'm being held back. This is another one. I spoke these words and I hear this from my clients. You feel like someone else is holding you back. Lance, I just saw your comment. I'm with you 100%. I'm with you 100%. Lance commented, I've had one boss and I had one boss in over 20 years that ever did that for me. I mean, that's the ratio. This doesn't happen. And we don't think that it doesn't happen because we think, oh, this is just normal. So this myth number 3, I'm being held back. Where you are today is absolutely a result of the choices you've made in your career. And it's so easy to blame your boss, your colleagues, or that one nemesis in the office that keeps getting in your way. But I have to hold myself and everyone here accountable. We are where we choose to be. And if you're staying, there's a payoff. And that shouldn't be a source of shame or embarrassment. I just wanted to be a source of awareness that sometimes we think that other people are responsible for where we are, but we are responsible. We are 100% responsible. And when you take 100% responsibility for staying with that jerk boss who won't support you or whatever you're doing, then you have the power to get out of it. So if you're being held back, you're probably holding yourself back and maybe blaming it on somebody else. So just be honest with yourself. Which brings me to this question, which is, what do you tell yourself that keeps you from doing and getting what you want? What does that little voice in your head say? We've all got it. We've got a good one and we've got a bad one. And from what I can tell, the bad one seems to bully the good one into silence. But I want you to think about, what do you tell yourself that keeps you from doing and getting what you want? Because we're going to address that today. And we're going to fire that voice, and we're going to give the mic to your more positive, your better half, your better angels, if you will. All right, now let's dig into this. Let's dig into the meat of what we're going to talk about today. And that is 5 ways you can use your job hunt to get a happier career. And even if you're not job hunting right now, these are things that will work wherever you are in your career. Maybe, these days everybody's job hunting, right? But, passive job hunting is huge. That means that a recruiter will reach out to you when you are happily employed and say, hey, you thinking of maybe doing something else? Absolutely, Whitney. It's easier to believe the bad stuff. And as soon as you become cognizant of that, it's easier to believe the good stuff. So 5 ways that you can use to pivot your career, where you are now, the direction, the trajectory, and be happier and get what you want. So let's dig into that. Number 1. This is number 1 without question. This is the biggest error I see people making in their careers, and their job hunt is when it really gets exaggerated. It really gets put under the microscope. But the thing that is most alluring, most rare, and will get you the most respect if you're a job seeker is this: crystal clarity on what it is you want. So what makes, the most alluring job seekers, the most sought after, the most respected, are the ones that are crystal clear on what they want. And I was having a chat discussion this week, and this job seeker was a rock star, had just done amazing work. It was so clear they just put incredible amounts of effort into executing a really, really solid campaign to let people know I'm job hunting and let people know what their skills were. And the one thing I noticed, and I see this day in and day out, is they really didn't say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm passionate about. And it comes back to, there are no jobs like that. You think, I can't do that because there are no jobs like that. And you slam the door in your own future before you have a chance to walk through it, before you have a chance to look through it. So get crystal clear on what you want. And this is really hard work, which is why a lot of people skip it. They're like, I'll just say this and then I won't have to do it. And then I can just go to the job boards and maybe I'll find something that'll be a fit. And that is just a shortcut to really going nowhere and really not being happy in your career. The people who get what they want are the ones who know what it is. So I want to give you an example that I think will give you some faith. Steve Jobs, I don't know how many of you saw his commencement speech at Stanford University. Steve Jobs went to college, went to Reed College. He dropped out after one semester, but then he hung out for 18 months. Just think about that. Just think about the person you knew at college that dropped out and then audited classes. This is probably not somebody that you badged as a go-getter. But that's what he did. And during that time, he took a calligraphy class. Now, the actual font didn't come through in this upload, but I actually had put the "you're taking what" in a calligraphy font. So he has dropped out of school. He is kind of living more or less on the dole, walking around campus, taking classes like calligraphy. I don't think anybody would have thought this guy's on his way. This is a star in the making. And in the graduation talk, Steve Jobs told the story, and he said, years and years later, when he built the Mac, what he learned about spacing and fonts and visual appeal in that calligraphy class was one of the main reasons that he was able to put that in the Mac, and the Mac was so successful. It was then copied by Microsoft. And his observation is that made 0 sense at the time, but it was a stroke of genius in the future, and it can only be appreciated looking back. I really encourage you to watch that talk, however you might feel about Steve Jobs. It's an incredible talk. And I want to share something else about Steve Jobs' history. Everybody views him as this, kind of industry profession god, and rightly so. He did some amazing things. He invented or stole, some people say, and that might be true, the mouse. He put the mouse out and it failed the first time. Utter failure. He started Apple, but he got fired from his own company. He went to Pixar and he started a company called Next and put out a computer there. Utter failure. He had a lot of failures. His career was not linear, and his greatest achievements came later in his career because he pushed through those failures. So I want you to think about that too. Just because you go for it, you try something and you fail, don't give up on doing that thing that you want to do. Because it is the only way you're ever going to be successful. So how do you get to that? So how do you take, okay, thanks, Courtney, great advice. I need to be clear on what I have to do. How do I do that? This is how you do that. Another Seth Godin quote: if you can't state your position in 8 words, you don't have a position. All you need to do is give people what I call a chicken McNugget, a bite-sized nugget, whatever, something that they can digest, not take a deep breath and then start telling them your life story, which is what a lot of us tend to do when we're asked, what do you do? It is worth doing this. And here's an action you can take today. The first thing I want you to do is I want you to go and I want you to look at your LinkedIn headline and your summary, your resume and your cover letter. And ask yourself, is it crystal clear what I deliver, who I deliver it for, and how? And if it's not, I want you to work on an 8-word position statement and try to answer those questions. Who are you doing it for? What are you doing and how are you doing it? You really need to be super clear about this. And once you get clear, you'll find that other kind of the next steps come into view. Okay, number 2. The first place you think of going in your job hunt is literally the last place you should go. And that is the job boards. Thousands of candidates glut the market here. The content is often stale because once companies fill a position, they often don't take the position down. They don't reach back out, to Monster or whatever consolidator they've booked the position on and say, take it down, we filled it. It just stays up there. The candidate that ultimately gets hired off of job board listings is often overqualified, just because so many people apply. And the people who tend to apply here might not be familiar with other ways of finding jobs. And we're going to talk about that. So what I suggest you do is use the boards to research the market, identify themes, and then do 3 things. And if you've heard these before, I'm going to shed some new light on them here. Go within, which is try to make contact within organizations with people you know. You've probably heard that before, but hold with me here. Proof of work. So make a list of the people and organizations that you'd like to talk to. Next, and these can be people, these can just be acquaintances. They can be contacts, but that should be on your first list. Next, make a list of people who you know believe in your work and have seen you do good work. So that's your second list. Far away from the job boards. And then the third list is companies that you would be their fan club president, organizations that you would be their fan club president, like you are such a believer in them. So those are 3 lists that you can take away from this. And they don't have to be long. They just have to be a start. Because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting. Now, what I want you to do next is I want you to realize that if you reach out to your contacts on these lists and you do it in the wrong way, you'll burn your contact. So you'll reach out, you won't have executed it well, you won't get the result you want, and you won't be able to go back to that contact. I have people who watch these webinars, or they'll watch just a quick free training, and then they'll rush out and they'll do it because they're so excited, like, oh, that's a great idea. If you feel that, great, because that's getting into action, and that usually results in good things, but be careful because you don't want to execute it the wrong way. When you're job hunting, there's kind of a game clock and it's ticking down. And if you do things right the first time, then you don't have to worry so much about getting stale as a candidate and burning your contacts. So keep that in mind when you're executing on these things. You're trying to get away from the job boards and you're going to your contacts. Think through what you're doing. If you take that clear 8-word position statement, you'll be able to engage them because they'll know exactly who to go to, what you're looking for. Everything will be a lot more clear. Now, finally, I want to talk about this fan club president. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. It's not Seth Godin. I actually looked up the source, and I'm not sure who the source of this quote is. But we all have people who just like us and think the work that we do is great. And, we just hit it off with them. And they're our fans. And those people are our supporters. They help us believe in ourselves. Well, the same is true for organizations. So if there are organizations you want to work for, start following them and being their fan. And I know, again, this is kind of like, you say, oh, I've heard this before, but I want to put a new twist on it. I was having a conversation with a client this week, and I said, where would you really like to work? What is your ideal? And this person mentioned a nonprofit. And we went to that nonprofit's webpage, and I said, well, are you engaging with them? Are you on there? Are you following them on LinkedIn? Are you on their Facebook page? Are you supporting them? Are you a vocal supporter? Are you engaging? Because companies love that. You love it when people like and comment on your stuff, and it's no different. It's no different for a company because companies are made up of people. So if there are companies that you would be their fan club president, then start engaging with them and start sharing the love with them because they will post the jobs and opportunities that they have to their fans first, and you will see them first. Another reason you want to do this is the language on their webpage, their language, their purpose statements, all of that should be your language. And when you're crystal clear on what you want to do and you haven't said, oh, there are no jobs like that, and you find these companies that you want to work with and for, and you take that same language that they use, then when they find you, they will hear their own language repeated back to them. And imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, and it works. And if this is inspired by what you truly want to do, and this is where you truly want to work, it will not seem insincere. It will not seem fake or sleazy marketing. It will seem to be exactly what it is, which is authentic and genuine. And that will only happen if you've gotten super clear on those 8 words about what it is you really want to do and who it is that you really want to work for. So it's absolutely worth investing that time. So don't be afraid of doing that, and don't feel like it's a waste of time, because it's absolutely not. Getting clear will give you your next steps. And yes, it is harder at first. It is so easy to get a vanilla latte and sit down in Starbucks and scan the job boards and say you've been working your butt off and nothing's happening and that recruiters suck and the job market is terrible. But really, that's an easy out. The scarier, harder work will get you a much more magnificent result. It's really difficult at first, but the payoff is infinitely higher. So don't fool yourself into thinking you're doing, yeoman's work by scanning monster.com. And I'm not picking on you. I just want you to be accountable and know that a better job is out there. Just push yourself a little bit harder. And this is a story of someone who did that and what happened. We cover this in Job Hunt School in the contact section. We talk about all the places you can go and make those contacts and become the fan club president. And Destiny Sims did that. And she was scared to death when she did this. She told me about this. And she said, I was so scared, but I did it. And the outcome was amazing. And I'll talk a little bit more about Destiny's outcome later in the webinar, but it works. It works. And I wouldn't tell you to do it if it didn't work. And I wouldn't tell you to face your fear and kind of push through that discomfort if it didn't work. So the next thing you want to pivot on is mastering the money. And most people hold themselves back because they avoid the extreme discomfort that they feel whenever it comes down to establishing their salary and negotiating for it. And again, I have this conversation a lot, and I experienced this myself. You might know that you're underemployed or underpaid, and you just feel completely limited. And you are right to feel that way, because you are limited. If you're working as an employee in another company that has been organized to put you in the least capable position, like the most vulnerable position when it comes to money. And I want to talk about what that looks like. First of all, there's zero transparency. So if you're underpaid right now or underemployed or have been in the past, don't beat yourself up too hard, because there's zero transparency. So that's the first strike against you. Next, you don't want to bring it up, because playing hardball with people you work with your boss, with the executive team, that's not going to win you any points either. So that's the second strike against you. The third strike against you is the fact that usually pay discussions only come up at one time in the year. So this is hanging over your head all year long. So the pressure builds up. And when you finally get around to doing it, there's so much pressure because you've been, waiting for a year. It's just misery. And then there's salary compression. You are this amazing employee who's working really hard and the clock's ticking. And each year, if you get a pay raise at all, it's maybe 2 or 3%, where the market and the new hires are being brought in and paid at the market value. Now, sometimes this can work for a person, but most often it works against a person. I mean, some markets do explode and there's a bubble, and the bubble bursts and you have that high salary, but more often than not, salary compression works against you. And honestly, it works against your company. So I want to share an example of how powerful this is, because a lot of people think, or I guess a lot of people don't realize, and you may be one of them, how much money you're leaving on the table. And the reason you don't realize it is because that lack of transparency. You are in the dark. And I want to play a video here that illustrates this so brilliantly. It's very short, but I think it really does drive this point home. So hopefully this will come through.
When I started to work in a big company, I thought I could apply the same mentality of, if you just work hard enough, I will be successful. Someone will take notice of me. This meant waiting and waiting. The issue with this is you blend in the background and become forgettable. Soon, you feel as if you're on the outside looking in. And waiting can be a costly thing. It can cost us opportunity, happiness, and even money. I can tell you exactly how much it cost me. $20,000. That was the pay difference between me and a male colleague who is younger, less experienced, and on an easier project.
Okay. Were you guys able to hear that? Hit me up in the chat because I didn't get the sound on that. And if you didn't get it, I apologize. Can you let me know in the chat window if you're able to hear that? Okay, great. Sylvester, sounds like you guys heard it. Absolutely. And I'll be honest with you. $20,000 is nothing. I've seen way more, and I'd be willing to bet some of you have as well. It is absolutely nothing. There are much, much bigger gaps, and that is just a perfect example. So this is the pivot. Your job hunt is the best time to score a significant increase in your remuneration package. And I say remuneration package, not salary, because your salary is just part of it. You need to know the dollar value of your vacation. You need to know the dollar value of all of your benefits to negotiate effectively. And everyone, and I did this myself, I'm totally not like slapping your hand with the ruler, because we tend to do this. And that is, we just think of the salary and we end up losing out on that. You have to know the dollar value of everything in your package today. And that is absolutely an action worth taking away on this. Just do it as an exercise, sit down and look at your pay stub and see where your money's going and say, okay, what is this worth? You know, what is and again, you also should know what an hour of your time is worth. If you are underpaid, the longer it sits, the heavier it gets, the worse it gets. It casts a very long shadow on your career. And I want to give you an example of what I mean by that. They call this the permanent detour. This is a study done by Burning Glass, and they followed 100 college students to their first job, and 43 of them were underemployed. After 5 years, 29 were still underemployed, and after 10 years, 21 were still underemployed. That means doing work where they could do it in their sleep and they're underpaid, or doing work where they're killing themselves and they're underpaid. It takes on a lot of different forms, but I guarantee if you are underemployed, you know what this feels like. And you have a lot working against you. But I will tell you something else that I see consistently, and it's this. I see someone who makes $100,000 a year that should be making $140,000 that won't invest $49 in a 45-minute negotiation course that could get them $50,000 higher in salary at their next job. And that is the thing I want to talk about after this. It's the very thing that keeps you doing that derails your career, and that if you can fix that, you can make a very successful pivot. I had a conversation with a client yesterday, and this is what she said to me. She said, I watched the negotiation bonus videos and it worked. And I mention this because the negotiation is a big part of Job Hunt School, because it's one of the big places where people, disconnect from a successful career. But the shock in her voice that it worked is what struck me. It's like, yeah, this works. Just like you didn't know how to ride a bike, but then you learned how to ride a bike. And you didn't know how to swim, but then you learned how to swim. You didn't know how to drive, but you learned how to drive. You didn't know how to negotiate, but you learned how to negotiate. She did everything in there. And I'll tell you, she said, I was nervous. It was awkward. I don't think I did it all right. Doesn't matter. She still won her negotiation. She got a much higher salary. And literally 90 minutes worth of content, if that. It's not even 90. In fact, it's probably under an hour. But she learned how to do it, and anyone can, and it will make your career pivot. It will just utterly and completely change the trajectory of where you're going. Which brings me to number 4. You think college is your car. You might think that you did all the learning that you need to do in college. You're like, okay, my education is over. See you later. I got my ride. And you get in your ride and you drive to your first job. College is not your ride. That is not your car. College does not equal a car. College is your first tank of gas. And the estimated mileage on your college education is getting your first job, because even now, even though a lot, college education and the amount of money it takes is definitely getting a lot of attention. Even now, with the extreme increase in prices or tuition prices, costs, people who are college educated still make more money than people who aren't. There's an exception to every rule, but that is the rule. So your college education is going to get you to your first job plus about 3 years. And then it's about your work. I have people who graduated Harvard coming to me asking me to help them find jobs. We're all living in the same world, and even a Harvard education is only going to get you so far. You have to learn more to earn more. You have got to fill up your own tank. You are not paid for where you got your degree. You are not paid for sitting in your cubicle at 7 o'clock, working your 45th hour, and it's only Wednesday. You are paid for the value you add, which ultimately is results. And if you rely on your company to educate you, you think, it's just like when you get out of college, you think, well, even if college is my car and, this is, the company's going to fill my tank. I'm going to rely on my company to fill my tank. They're going to pay for my, my certifications and my classes. Hand them the keys and the title right now, because you just gave them your career. If you rely on your company to pay for your education, then you'll go as far as they want you to go. Even if you're like and they're like super talented, we're going to make you a leader one day club, which some of these companies have, where they diss some employees and favor other employees, and you get to go away to a special training. I did that. They sent us to Yale. I got a sweatshirt. I don't remember a single thing that I learned, but the catering was amazing. And I got to tell everybody that I got picked to go to Yale. When I invested money in my own training, I got a $60,000 pay increase during the economic downturn. I left one career and started another career. I got a TED Talk. That was all based on when I realized I wasn't going to go anywhere until I started investing in myself and not depend on my company to send me to get a PMP certification or, whatever else they were going, to give me, whatever cookie they were going to throw me. Companies do great things for employees. They really do. And it's great that they pay for education. And I got some great education from the companies I worked at, for which I'm extremely grateful. But I think it was Sylvester who said, who was it that said they had one boss in 20 years that supported them? I think it was you, Sylvester. I had one company in 20 years that sent me to a training that I remember to this day what I learned in that training. And over the years of my career, I did a lot of trainings. So invest in yourself. Don't rely on your company to fill your tank. And I'm going to give you a rule of thumb to follow on this as we move on. But first, I want to talk about the 5th pivot you've got to master. And that is understanding scary versus dangerous. A lot of people don't know the difference between scary and dangerous. During your job hunt and in your career, you will avoid what's scary. You will avoid going for a job that you might feel would be a stretch for you, negotiating your salary because it's awkward and you don't want them to think you're greedy, asking for, something in your benefits package during negotiation that you want, whatever it is that you are afraid to do. And I know you're thinking of it because we've all got that thing. Those things are scary. But when you don't do them, it's dangerous. Something that's scary isn't necessarily dangerous. Smoking, for example, isn't scary at all. People who smoke love smoking. They enjoy it. But it's actually very dangerous. Eating fried foods, isn't scary, but it can be dangerous if your cholesterol goes up and you have a heart attack. So I want you to think about what you're not doing because it's scary that is putting you in danger. Because if you're managing your career away from scary, you're probably managing it into danger. And that's a pivot that you need to think about, and think about what it is you are not doing because it makes you feel awkward. And I'm going to give you a tool to feel less awkward about that. All right, I want to talk about a tale of two choices. A lot of times we're scared because we don't know what to do. And I've made these anonymous, but these are just messages that I've gotten as recently as yesterday. People send me messages on LinkedIn. People on this call, webinar, you may have sent me a message. And I love it when people ask for my help. I consider it an incredible sign of respect. I appreciate it. I would happily sit at my computer all day long and coach people for free if I had a trust fund. But these are some examples of just some questions I get. Is it better to apply through an organization's website or here on LinkedIn? Your thoughts. This person found out about a position being closed. They want to know, what do you make of this? Another person was riffed and they're seeking opportunities and they want me to assist. Most people have questions like this all throughout their job hunt. I understand why I get these messages, because it can be challenging. And even if you know what to do, it's scary. So you might not want to do it. As I was preparing this slide deck last night, I got this message from a job hunt school scholar. Her name is Destiny Sims, and this is what she posted. I'm totally not making this up. I'm literally, like, it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm doing this slideshow, and I get this. I absolutely love my new job. I just had orientation today. I'm working for a company that believes in helping people. I love the culture. It is my dream job, really. Job hunt school works. God has blessed me abundantly. Destiny enrolled in job hunt school. I used her as an example of somebody who went through the contact section and actually did that work. She found the job that she wanted. She skipped the job board. She contacted the company. Now, she interviewed for one job and she didn't get it, but then she got her second job. And how I responded to her was, she made this happen. I just gave her the information to make it happen. Information, knowledge is power. And the reason people feel awkward in their job hunts is because most people have never been taught. And if you have been taught, maybe you've learned as you've kind of gone along in your career, you've picked up a lot of good information, but things have changed. It has turned into a much more sophisticated exercise. So I want to quickly recap what we covered. And then I want to jump to this golden equation. And I want to talk about some resources that can help you, that I think you may not even know exist. Because when people get them, they say, oh, I didn't even know that existed. So I want to talk about that as well. First of all, get crystal clear. Get that 8-word position statement. Skip the job boards and go to the source. It's scary, but not doing it is dangerous. Master the money. Again, I know it's scary, but you have learned to do so many things, and you can most certainly learn to negotiate. And most of the people who do the negotiation, like the example I gave you today, they're like, it worked, like a shock. It actually worked. If you want to earn more, you have got to learn more. You've got to continue refilling your tank after you get out, after you get out into your career. You can't just ride on your college education and what you're learning at work. You will sputter out on empty and be on the side of the road, and people who are getting education will fly past you. Face what's scary to avoid what's dangerous. Face what's scary to avoid what is dangerous. Now, I always have to mention this. Those of you who are returning, my golden rule of success is this: winners are people who do what losers are afraid or unwilling to do. And again, it comes back to, what are you maybe not doing because it's because it's a little scary. So these are the resources I want to talk to you about. Some of the resources that you may not know about and that you need in your job hunt: resume keyword scanner. You need free professional quality photos for your LinkedIn profiles, graphic design resources. You can't just do a straight word, word resume anymore. Writing and grammar tools, automated cover letter writer, those are out there. Market test your profile photo with a live real-time focus group. Tools to find unpublished email addresses, modern resume building tools, a tool to clean up your social media feed, and tools to organize and track your applications. If you want to make a pivot in your career, if you want to be more confident, you need to educate yourself. Everything that I've covered in this webinar, in all my webinars, is content in Job Hunt School. Job Hunt School contains every one of those resources. Job Hunt School is what Destiny used to get her job. And one of the most powerful aspects of any education, wherever you get this information, is it's going to raise your confidence and it's going to give you that clarity. Because when you're not confident, when you feel fearful or scared, it creates white noise. And that white noise gets in the way of your instincts. I talked in a previous webinar about the tequila effect. And I said, job hunting is like tequila, because when you're under the influence of it, you do things you normally wouldn't do, or you can't do things you normally could do. It has a really kind of dangerous effect. Job Hunt School takes you through the 5 modules of a job hunt. The know module is the first thing we talked about, getting that 8-word position statement, knowing what your values are, knowing what you want to do, knowing what your salary is. Brad Don's Job Hunt School Scholar, this is what he said when he finished the know section. How many times have you just wished someone would tell you plainly how to get where you want to go in your career? That's what Job Hunt School offers. It just tells you plainly what you need to know to get where you want to go in your career. It gives you that transparency that your company won't give you. The contact section, Destiny talked about this, giving you the tools to get away from the job boards and to move away from that cattle call and go where your 8-word position statement and where this kind of newfound knowledge of what it is you want to do next, wherever that takes you. The compose section is all about writing. This is where those grammar and writing tools come in. This is where the automated cover letter generator comes in. So you can get that automated cover letter and then write an amazing cover letter. Just tune it with the information you get in Job Hunt School. Same thing with the resume. One of the first things people say to me whenever job hunting comes up, they think, got to get my resume dialed in. It's like, that's one of like 10 things you've got to do. But it's so unnerving to feel like I'm not sure if my resume is right, or I know it's not right, but I don't know how to fix it. And you don't want to pay $1,000 every time you job hunt to have somebody write your resume so you can feel good about it. You having this power is going to send your confidence through the stratosphere. It is really going to make a difference when you know how to do this yourself and you're not relying on other people. Connecting with people. This is your interview. This is that negotiation. This is your marketing. This also includes kind of knowing how to use social proof to compel people. Zara Safa enrolled in Job Hunt School. She just got a job a few weeks ago. She used the unforgettable interview tool. I know a lot of people get nervous when it comes to interviewing. And if you get nervous, you are not alone. This helps you slice and dice exactly what it is you do, enables you to articulate it clearly, and come off in an interview with confidence. If you are prepared, you'll be able to walk in with so much more confidence. And in the close section and the negotiation video series, that's when you kind of put it all together. You negotiate your salary, but you also will learn how to protect yourself from some of the contract traps that are in almost every employment contract today. Not being able to work for another company for as long as 2 years. All sorts of things that go in a vanilla contract that you can easily have removed if you know that they're there and you know how to ask for them to be removed. This also includes a signing bonus. A signing bonus can turn into a real trap. So if you are not sure how to protect yourself from these, or you're not sure about your negotiation, people who have used the negotiation training, one of our scholars got a 25% pay increase. It was 26 times her investment in Job Hunt School. Which leads me to talk about the common room and collaboration. A lot of the anxiety in your job hunt comes from being alone, which is why I got those messages. It's because people don't have anyone to talk to. They don't want to post it on LinkedIn because they know it can be seen by employers and recruiters. The common room is where you can interact with me and with other job seekers to talk about what they're experiencing, what they've done. You can get coaching directly from me in the common room. In Job Hunt School, you've got 4 bonuses. LinkedIn Boost, which some of you may have heard about, the negotiation bonus, the resign right bonus, and there's a mindset bonus where you can listen to some guided meditations. Don't roll your eyes. This is actually one of the most powerful things in Job Hunt School because we all carry baggage from our experiences where maybe we did something wrong or we made a mistake or we had a bad experience at our last job. And you really need to just get that out of your head so you can focus on what's in front of you. And that's why I include those mindset bonuses. I talked about the negotiation bonus. It's a 5-video series. You could practically get through it on your lunch hour. But the people who've used it have gotten unbelievable salary increases. And again, the residue of all of this is confidence. I mentioned the 25% pay increase and the 2 Job Hunt scholars getting jobs and using these negotiation videos. So if that is an area of discomfort for you, it's something that you can learn, and it doesn't have to continue to be an area of discomfort for you. All of the bonuses in Job Hunt School equal a value of $549. These are a couple of people who took the LinkedIn Boost bonus recently. John McCaskill is a Navy SEAL. I encourage you to follow him on LinkedIn if you don't. He has a great LinkedIn feed. You can learn a lot just from following him. Same with Alagu Mariappan. He is in Singapore. He's a business consultant. He used LinkedIn Boost. And I think one of his first posts got over 12,000 views. Again, I encourage you to follow both of these people because you can learn a lot just from watching what they post, how they've written their profiles. And they learned all of that in LinkedIn Boost, which is one of the Job Hunt School bonuses. Everything in the program is downloadable and portable. If you've ever heard of Automobile University, you can load these MP3s on your phone, listen to them in your car on the way to work, anywhere. Job Hunt School is $499, but this week I've actually added some things into this that are going to make it worthwhile. And now I want to talk to you about the bonus, that golden equation. Remember I said write down how many years you've been working? Well, now I want you to grab your pen and paper, and I want you to write down over the 10 years, how much money have you invested in your own training since you graduated college? Whatever that number is, divide it by the number of years you've been working. So maybe it's 1,000, maybe you went to a conference. And whatever the number you get is, ask yourself, is it 3% of my annual salary? So if you take the number of years that you've been working and divide it using the amount of money that you've spent on your own education since you graduated, which is basically the fuel in your tank. If that number is not at least 3% of your annual salary, you're probably not going to move very far ahead in your career. This isn't something I got out of a textbook. This is something that I have seen over and over again in almost 20 years of working in big companies. And I'll tell you another thing. The people who are doing this type of work generally don't share it. They don't share that secret. When I was doing a lot of my education towards the end of my corporate career, when I went and did a training on my own, one of my managers actually made fun of me. Oh, what are you going to that group hug training? I mean, literally made fun of me for doing it. And all I could think was, everything you like about my performance here, all the good work that I do, the work that earns me the most money and the most respect, are things that I learned at trainings that I did for myself. So just think about what you're investing in yourself, because it's going to have a material impact on how far you get in your career. Don't rely on your company to train you. If you're thinking about getting help with your job hunt, if you're thinking about Job Hunt School, know that there's not going to be any risk to you because you can try it out for 30 days. I offer this on everything that I do because I know often when you're job hunting, you have some anxiety around making an investment. So you can start today and you can try it for 30 days. And if it does not work for you, you can just ask for your money back. But I will tell you, the program works if you work the content, which is not just watching the videos. Anybody can sit and watch a video, but if you take what you learn and you take it out into the real world, you will see results. I've seen it over and over and over again. So there's no risk to you. I've added on a bonus for this week. And that bonus is 2 sessions working with me and a LinkedIn profile review. So you can do a 1-hour strategy session, which is a $299 value. You can do it in 2 30-minute sessions or 1 hour long session. We'll get on the phone, we'll get on a Zoom session, and you can tell me what's going on in your career. And it'll be a lot like this, except it'll be one-on-one. I will also give you a LinkedIn profile review. You may think, oh, I want you to look at my resume. Believe me, in 99% of industries these days, your LinkedIn profile is going to be a lot more important than your resume. It's going to run a lot deeper. So if you are interested in thinking about job hunt school, think about the cost of job hunt school compared to the number of years you've been working and the number of years you're going to work. And if you are not seeing the results you want, if you're not as successful as you thought you'd be at this point, if you're not getting paid what you thought you would get paid at this point, then invest in yourself, fuel up your tank. Get the 1-hour strategy session and the LinkedIn profile review. $299 for the 1-hour strategy and LinkedIn profile review. I sell separately. You can check out the LinkedIn Boost site. It's $199. I will include it with the cost of job hunt school. You will see some amazing results from this because I know people that have. If you don't feel great about where you are in your career, if you don't get this training here, please get it somewhere, because you really can make a powerful pivot in your career. You absolutely have that in your power. You're smart enough. You're hardworking enough. If you're here today, it's important to you and you've already made this investment. So I would love to have you in the program. The offer is up until Sunday at midnight. I have enough time in my schedule to do 7 of these. So if you're interested, you can click on the link now. You can go to the Job Hunt School site and just click on the $499. The first 7 I get, we'll get these 2 bonuses. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm going to click back into the chat window. If you have any questions about the offer, if you have any questions about Job Hunt School, you can post them here. If you have any questions about the content we covered today, feel free to drop it in the chat window. I know we're probably it's right at 1 o'clock. So I know many of you have to get back to your lives and your work, but if you have any questions, feel free. I'll stay on for a minute longer and you can drop them right in the chat. Be happy to respond. Doesn't look like I'm not seeing any come through, but I know there's a slight delay. I'm going to scan through and see if there are any questions down here. Let's see, I'm just scanning. Oh, thanks so much. Thank you, FSR. Really appreciate it. And I'm really glad you came today. All of you, thank you so much. Tammy, hit me up in the common room. Tammy is already a member of Job Hunt School. I saw you join. Totally forgot about this. Definitely be happy to talk with you about how we can make this offer work for you, Tammy. Just hit me up in Job Hunt School or message me on LinkedIn. That goes for everyone. Yes, Tammy, you can purchase it separately. No problemo. We'll work something out. Hey, Suzanne, I started Job Hunt School in 2016, and I started my own company doing this in 2013. Thank you for asking. Unfortunately, you can't get just the negotiation tool, Dilip, but I promise you that the negotiation tool alone is worth the cost of the entire program. You throw in the 1-hour strategy session and the LinkedIn profile review, and you're going to feel bulletproof. And seriously, if you don't, 30 days, your money back. Read the information before you purchase. I encourage you to read that guarantee. There is a stipulation that you have to show that you've done the work. And I do that because if you've done the work, it works. But just make sure you read it and you're comfortable with it. Yes, Sylvester, I absolutely would. Jack your confidence up. You're welcome, Emily. Get your confidence up and just do business. Sylvester, to what you're saying here, I kind of view it as I don't know if you've heard about the myth of the American Revolution, and they said that the rebels won because they were dressed in buckskins and hiding in the woods doing guerrilla warfare, where the British were dressed in red and white suits and standing out in the field to be shot. That's actually a myth. There was only one battle where where they were, hiding in the woods, but it's a great myth, and that's what they put in the movies. Sometimes you do have to play, quote unquote, play by the rules, but business is business. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with you going to the recruiter. And the benefit is you can develop a relationship with that recruiter. If you go to the recruiter, make it a point to find a way to help them. Whatever happens, just make sure you try to say, is there, maybe I can help you find somebody else for this role, or, if you're an obviously not a fit, or whatever. There's a lot of recruiter bashing going on right now, but I find that recruiters help people who help them. So just a little tip: when you go there, definitely go to the recruiter and definitely try to offer some help. Dilip, I would love to have you join the program. So you're in the middle of your negotiation now. That sounds so British. You're welcome, Sylvester. All right. The clock is ticking down. Does anybody else have any questions? I really appreciate those of you who've stayed and are asking questions. All right. I think we're about 5 or 7. Yeah, just a few minutes past the hour. I'm going to wrap it up. If you have any questions, feel free to email me any lingering questions regarding Job Hunt School. I would love to have you join. This offer is up until Sunday midnight. And hopefully we'll be working together in the next week. Thanks again for joining. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care.